Quotations from myself, segment 45. Quotation number 542. The majority of people can be roughly divided into two groups, the rational and the irrational. The defining attributes of the rational are their flexibility and willingness to accept the alternatives. What sets irrational apart is their stubborn single-mindedness. Yet in the war which is called life, the stubborn irrationalists always win over the flexible rationalists. And in the game of chicken, when two cars race toward each other, risking the seemingly inevitable and deadly head-on collision, it is a rational one, realizing the impending disaster, who would swerve first to avoid it. The irrational, by their very nature, are incapable either to foresee or fully comprehend danger. Or what best characterizes a rational man is a lack of imagination, a kind of foresight of several possible outcomes of his action, an evaluation of their comparative affordability. Instead, the only thing the irrational man knows, or believes to know without doubt, for he seldom has any doubt, is what he wants. Nothing else matters. The thing could not go wrong because they wouldn't, and they shouldn't. The irrationality starts and finishes with desire, whereas rationality begins with wish and ends with possibilities. The crucial advantage the irrational people have over the rational ones is their willingness to put on the line everything they have, including, in the extreme circumstances, their very lives in order to win, even if the fruits of victory are negligible in comparison with the sacrifices they would have to make. And this willingness to give up their lives is the strongest proof of their irrationality, for no gains can compensate the loss of life, since the dead cannot enjoy the fruits of victory. The rational understand this. They know the odds too well and refuse to play a game of chicken. And they lose every time when confronted by the irrational maniacs. The irrational are as fearless as the mad and ignorant are. The rational are as cowardly as the sane and knowledgeable are. And yet the first, the irrational, rules the world. Their power is based on the interconnectedness of life. They act as terrorists who hijack the airplane full of rational people, and by threatening to blow it up, which would kill everyone on board, including them, and thus they gain control over it. The rational have no other choice but to submit. The irrational seems to be indestructible. Like the warriors growing from the planted into ground dragon teeth, as soon as one is destroyed, there always another to take his place. Where are they coming from? Alas, we produce them. How? There are perhaps the seeds of irrationality in each of us, waiting for that combination of inner and outer condition to burst forth. 543. If nature is the only realm that is, and since man is unquestionably a part of nature, anything he does is, albeit in the most general sense, is natural. Therefore, to ask a man to act in accordance with nature, as the Stoics did, is redundant, unless it means to live as animals do, that is, by just satisfying the basic physiological needs in order to survive. But if measured by such a standard, not even the most primitive aborigines live completely according to nature. Nay, comparing man's relations to nature with that of the other animals, the very existence of man as a species must be the unnatural phenomenon. For unlike the rest of other animals, man consumes not only to satisfy his physical needs, which are more or less permanent, but also according to his imagination, which seems to have no limits. And nothing man can do, short of reverse evolution back to his primitive ancestors, would change this fact. 544. For most of parents, their children are extensions of themselves, or, to put it metaphorically, children are parts of parents' body. But they are the parts over which, as time goes by, parents have less and less control. And the more a child grows up, the more it becomes the source of one of the most frustrating emotions all parents of grown-up children share in common: the feeling of powerlessness to protect yourself in a child, which is a part of you. 545. How many times I try to start my life again, to come back to a place I passed before and where perhaps I failed. And from this point, I would choose another road, a new direction, only to find in due course that neither leads to the perfection. Yet stubbornly I trace my steps to the mistakes I made again, condemned like Sisyphus to roll life's stone knowingly in vain. 546. Besides blind instinct to survive, which man shares with other animals, what else makes us to cling so tenaciously to life? Why do I want to go on living? Is it to read a few more pages in the book of life, the book which has no beginning nor the end? Am I just curious about tomorrow? Or is it a desire to experience, for as long as possible, the things I like in seemingly endless repetition? Or is it the apprehension of how my death will affect those close to me? 547. Sooner or later, everyone, no matter how defiant he is, submits, however reluctantly, to the inevitable. 548. This is my lot in life, and I do not complain. I nothing have to lose, nor anything to gain. 549. Living one life that is your own is difficult enough without trying to live, even vicariously, the lives of the others, no matter how near and dear they are to you. 550. Show me a thoughtful and considerate man or a woman, and I will show you someone who had his or her share of pain and suffering. 551. Justice is the most sought after and the hardest to obtain commodity in life. Children who are yet ignorant of the ways of this world expect it automatically, and much of the childhood distress is caused by the persistent frustration of these expectations. Consequently, the growing up can be partly defined as a process of learning the hard truth that what we are striving for the most is usually attainable the least. 552. Happiness is the acceptance of your limitations, both subjective and objective, and the ability to live with them. 553. If Descartes had lived today, he would probably have rephrased his famous maxim, "I think, therefore I am," into the one which would be more appropriate to our times. "I am on television, therefore I exist." 554. The only hope of ever obtaining inner or any other peace lies in leaving the ruins and minefield of the past, and without ever looking, like Lot's wife back, head for the virgin unexplored and hence still promising meadows of the future. 555. The real poetic license is not giving oneself the unrestrained freedom to use unusual grammar or the words, the meaning of which only a few select can guess, but to be perfectly honest, by allowing oneself to undress in public, emotionally, spiritually, and intellectually, the kind of luxury the overwhelming majority of us can ill afford in our day-to-day existence. 556. In this free world of ours, it seems enough, let's say, to ask for a simple glass of water in a wine cellar to be immediately branded as, at best, as unreasonably extravagant eccentric, or at worst, as a sinister subversive. 557. For the countless millennia, human beings were conditioned both by nature and by society to struggle for the sheer physical survival. Now, when the modern technology, through the seemingly endless increase in productivity, relieves almost everybody partially, and the ever-increasing numbers of people completely from such a necessity, the pent-up potential energy intended for this struggle will, looking for the outlet, turn inward and lead to their self-destruction. 558. Psychiatrists' offices and psychiatric wards are full of people who were brought up to believe that being persistent in trying to achieve one's goal in life will sooner or later bring success. 559. It is no wonder that the Christian preacher talks so much about God's boundless compassion, limitless forgiveness, and bottomless mercy, for they are themselves too often in much greater need of God's benevolence than the most of their flock.